Yeah. If you look on Blackboard, it has questions for Bio Chapter 9, which is actually pages 155 through 175. And remember the biomechanics stuff? We're not using the chapters in your textbook. We're using the ones, these right here, that I have given you on Blackboard. So this is where you go to find your answers. So like this one right here, you'll use that to answer these questions. And I just put it on there. These questions right here are for the other part, this one. Now, if we look, I didn't know how many questions I'd find. So if you look at your syllabus, oops, we go over to the schedule. All right, schedule. So you will see for this week, you've already done your questions for this week. Chapter 13 was due last night, so you have no more questions this week. But for Monday night, you will have the biomechanics. This is right here for Monday the 11th. Those are the first ones, the Chapter 9 questions. What isn't on here, you need to write down, and I'll send out an email too, but you also will have questions due at midnight on Wednesday, September 13th. That's for the biomechanics chapter 11, pages 177 to something or other. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't do it right. Put it that way. Now, so I'll send out an email about that. Also, right now the test number 1 is scheduled for Thursday, September 21. It could be the 26th. It says on here, tentative schedule of classes. That's why. We will never have a test earlier than what it is scheduled on your syllabus. It could be later, and in this case it might be. I just don't know yet. We'll see. Yes? There's nothing due this Wednesday. You've already done it for this week. Okay? This is for next week. Okay? We're going to this week we'll finish with the exercise phys. Next week we'll start with the biomechanics part. Okay? Other questions on this? Again, I'll send out an email on this. Just want to make sure. Okay. Let's look at that. All right. Did anybody do the muscle type test? Remember I sent you out and we talked about and I showed you a way of testing whether you had a lot of type 1 muscle fibers, type 2, A, B, anybody? Right? Okay, well it might be some, its email is in your email box. I sent that to you last Thursday. That would be something interesting just for you to try and to see what kind of fibers you have. All right, so we are continuing to talk today about physiological adaptations to training. We went over these things, things that cause fatigue during exercise. Remember, a lot of this is related to the metabolic adaptations we can make according to how we get our energy for making muscular contractions. That's why we went over those things to start with. Okay. And some of the adaptations that happen when you do sprint and strength training. And then endurance training. And specifically for the cardiovascular system, what happens? Because there's a lot that happens in there. And with the muscular system, with strength, some of the changes that can happen and why they happen, one has to do with hypertrophy. And that doesn't happen until 6 to 8 weeks into strength training, which is when your muscles actually get bigger. And what happens is that they increase in diameter. There's also a change in the connective tissues that contribute to that as well. You're going to see the term specific a lot. Specificity is important to whatever kind of training you're doing, whether it's strength, power, endurance, whatever. Some of the metabolic adaptations within the neural adaptations, for me, this is kind of one of the more interesting changes that happen with strength training, is that your strength improvements for the first 6 to 8 weeks has to do with really your brain. Your brain teaching your muscles which fibers and how many fibers to recruit, which ones to inhibit, which ones to engage. All right, and that leads us to where we're starting for today, with muscular power and endurance. When we talk about power, we're talking about the ability to generate a large amount of force very rapidly. So you need both strength and speed. Can you think of, in sport or maybe in everyday life, things that need power? Sport or everyday life. What are the kinds of things we're talking about? Yes? Weightlifting. You bet. What else? Yes?
Sprinters.
Sprinters, yeah, especially coming out of those blocks. They got to get that power, come out very quickly, up at the top. What? Yeah, football players coming off the line. Those kinds of things. Yes? What? Swimmers, definitely. Again, coming off the line just like sprinters in running. Any other ones? Yes?
Pushing a heavy box on the floor.
Okay, good. Pushing a heavy box. What else? Doing what?
Gymnastics, like hitting the springboard.
Oh, good. Very good. Very good. Yeah, you guys got some different ideas. That's excellent. What else?
Start of a race and rowing.
Okay, when you're starting a race and rowing. So a lot of those starting activities, when you got to get going and get off the starting line right away, we're seeing that that's very important. Okay, so what we know about muscular power is that there is a relationship between force and speed of contraction. They are inversely related. Okay, if there's a positive relationship, that means that as one thing goes up, the other thing goes up. That's not the case here. Here, this is an inverse relationship. As force goes up, speed goes down. As speed goes up, force goes down. So, I'm going to skip past these and look at this one. Take a look at this chart. What are some things that you see without reading anything? Just look at the chart. What are some things that you see on this chart? Okay, fast twitch muscles are faster, they have more power, they have more speed than the slow twitch ones. Yeah, because right here you see the fast twitch ones are always above the slow twitch ones. Okay, good. Yes, what else?
The more fast twitch fibers you have, the lower force.
Memory fast twitch fibers. It kind of looks that way, doesn't it? That's not necessarily true. It'll depend on this, okay? What else do you see? Look at this, and then look at this. So here we have this right here. Here's slow, and here's fast. That's the speed of the contraction. This is the amount of force right here. Here we have low versus high. What happens if you have a very fast? Okay, good. That's a good way to put it. Right here, this is fast. This is a fast shortening contraction. There isn't, look, it's very low force. There's not a lot of oomph behind it. There's not a lot of force behind it. Why is that? When you have a very fast contraction, what can't you do? What can't your muscle fibers way inside you do? Think back to what causes a contraction. Think back to the muscle fiber. Actin and myosin. Yeah. Okay.
The actin and myosin can't pull as far.
Good, good. That's exactly right. So when you have a really, really fast contraction, what happens is that your muscle fibers don't have time to make those cross bridges. The actin and myosin don't have time to make those connections and pull themselves together to make nice, strong contractions. Okay? That's the reason why fast contractions don't have as much force. Okay? Over here, you have a very slow contraction. So you have lots of time to make those connections. But what's the problem with that? What's our definition of power? Speed and strength. Okay, so we both need speed and strength. So yeah, over here, we got lots of force, we got lots of strength, but not a lot of speed. So you're not going to have a lot of power there. So what you find is that if you want to get the most power, on this part right here, cross out force, that gets confusing. Just circle power and cross out force. That'll make it better. So your amount of power right here, how much power can you get? Well, you're going to have the most power at kind of a mid-level speed of contraction. So not the very fast contraction, not slow. I mean, if you want to go with your maximal force, an isometric contraction is the strongest because you got all kinds of time to make all those cross bridges. And you can use all the muscle fibers there possible. Problem is you got no power because you're not moving. It'd be like a person swimming who's standing on the starting blocks. Okay? So mid-level is where you're going to find your greatest power. Okay, as far as speed goes. All right, so let's back it up. Then we get back to muscular power as far as specificity. Your high-speed power training is going to enhance power at high speeds, but not lower, and vice versa. So it's that specificity thing. If you want things to happen quickly, you should train at that level. Okay? If you want to have development at a slower level, you should train at that level. That's all that's saying. Now, the neat thing is, the great thing about training for power and strength is that if you do so, you're also going to see an improvement in your endurance. Okay, and you're thinking, well, what? We just talked about specificity. That doesn't make sense. Okay? Think of it this way. Endurance, think what endurance is. Endurance is the ability to repeat a contraction over and over again. Okay, that's what endurance is. You're repeating your ability to repeat a contraction over and over again, or to maintain a force over time. Okay? make sure I get this right. All right. How does that work? Let's say that you have a max force of 100 pounds. Okay, so your max force is 100 pounds. And so at submax, let's say going 50% of your max force, that would be 50 pounds. And let's say you want to test your endurance and you find that you can lift 50 pounds 50 times. That would be a lot, but let's just say. Okay, so there's your endurance. Here's your max force, here's your endurance. What's going to happen if you increase your max force? Let's say this increases to 120. Okay. Now, you want to see what happens to your endurance then. Well, what's going to happen? If I've gone up to 120 pounds here, and I'm going to test myself again. How many times can I lift 50 pounds? What's going to happen to this number? More reps. Let's say it goes up to maybe 60 times. Okay? Why is that?
Easier to do the movement.
Yeah, you're stronger. It's easier to do the movement. This is actually, before this was 50% of your max. Now this is less than 50%. So yeah, you're going to be able to do more. Yeah?
Is the relationship vice versa, so where you have more endurance strength, like you could do more reps, you'd have a higher max force?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I don't think it's a vice versa relationship, but let me find out for you, okay? Because that's a good question. And maybe some of you who do endurance type things, some of you swimmers, soccer players, runners, crew folks, maybe you've seen this kind of thing. This is why it's a good idea if you are interested in basic fitness. I would do strength training because number one, it takes less time and you're going to see an improvement in your endurance anyway. I remember several years ago, my church they constructed a community center. And in the community center, there was a fitness facility. And so people were going there to work out from the church who had never worked out before. And I remember a couple, kind of a middle-aged couple who came to me and they wanted to know what kind of workouts they should do. And they had already kind of started working out. And they wanted basic fitness and wanted endurance because they wanted, just to have healthy living. Not going to train for anything. And they were spending like an hour on a workout because they were doing specific endurance workout, but they were doing like extreme, like choosing a weight and doing 50 reps on something for a set. And I told them, you know what, you could save yourself a lot of time. Pick a bigger weight and do 12 to 15 reps in a set. And you'll be more time efficient, won't get as bored, and you'll get just as good a benefit out of it, if not better, because you also develop strength. But they didn't listen to me. Okay. So that's a good thing. Looked at that. All right. So what happens, we talked before about how when you do, after 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to get hypertrophy. So your muscle fibers are going to increase in diameter, and that's what hypertrophy is, as well as an increase in your connective tissues. There's also something called hyperplasia. Hyperplasia is an increase in the number of muscle fibers. Now, for the most part, for the vast majority of us, 99% of us, this doesn't happen. In fact, for the longest time, they thought it didn't happen with anybody, that we were born with the number of muscle fibers we have, and that's all you have. You can increase by your muscle size, get hypertrophy by increasing the size of the diameter and the connective tissue, but not increase number of muscle fibers. Well, what they found is that some weightlifters and bodybuilders, like the lady we saw on the video last week, they tested their muscles and they found that the size of their muscle fibers really wasn't any different than regular workout folks like you and I. Okay, so they were getting big muscles, but their muscle fibers weren't getting much bigger. What they did find was that these folks who were doing extreme workouts for bodybuilding and weightlifting, they were actually having some division of muscle fibers and getting more muscle fibers. And again, that doesn't happen very often, only with these very, very extreme kinds of workouts, but it is possible. Hyperplasia is possible if you're in those extreme areas. Another thing they found that they didn't think was possible before is that fast twitch fibers can change some of their oxidative capacities, specifically the fast twitch B fibers. Remember, those are the really fast ones who have lots of power, and supposedly they have very little oxidative capacity. Well, again, they found that some very, very high resistance and power training can make some changes in those fast twitch B fibers so that they become more oxidative. Yes?
Is this more of a genetic or environmental being, like diet and exercise?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows yet because it doesn't happen that often. Okay? And maybe that'd be something you could research in the future. Okay? So, again, it's totally different than what we thought would happen. This is high-powered training, high-strength training, and yet it's improving oxidative capacity. So that's very different. All right, so that kind of summarizes all those things that we talked about last time and this time. Kind of summarizes the changes that happen, mostly metabolic changes as we do training. Well, how do we do that training? Okay. Now, some of these things are going to be very similar to probably a lot of you. And in fact, last year I didn't go over these things because I thought, well, everybody knows that stuff. But what I find is that when I assume those things, you know what happens then. I found that a lot of people didn't have that information. Okay, so we will go over these today. So, one of the basic principles of training we've already talked about a lot is that of specificity. If you want development in a particular area, in a particular sport, in a particular way, the best way to get it is to train in a way that is most like that. Okay, so if you're doing a long distance swim, it's a good idea to train that way. If you are doing a team sport like soccer that has, lots of running, but then you get to rest a little bit, and then you run some more, and then you sprint some more, you need to have some training that looks like that. Okay? The muscles respond to the physiological and metabolic demands you put on it. So if soccer players only do long, slow distance running, they're not going to be as good in their fitness level and in their gameplay as another team that has done more start and stop kinds of things, because that's what they do in a soccer game. You're trying to train more of the anaerobic glycolytic system with the start and stop, whereas the first one you would be doing the oxidative system, and that's not going to help you as much. Okay, so you need to do things that are specific to the activity. It also helps with the particular, not just the metabolic adaptations, but the neural adaptations. Training the right muscles to do things at the right speed and at the right time. And that will also happen with your specificity. Okay? All right, training variables. These are things you can vary within workout sessions, within training sessions. And you've probably all heard of the FIT principle. FIT, F stands for frequency. How many times per week, for example? Intensity, how hard should a person work out? A lot of times that is related to percentage of VO2 max or percentage of 1 repetition max, maxless, 10, what's a weight at which you can get 10 lifts, that sort of thing. So how hard are you working out? That's intensity. Time, how long? So how long, if you're going for a run, how long should that be? Was that this intensity level? And then the other T stands for type or mode. What type of exercise should be done? We just talked about specificity, especially for if you're training for a sport, you need to train in the way that that sport is done. If you're talking about health-related fitness, you have more leeway. Okay, health-related fitness, you can do all kinds of different things for your type or your mode. And it's a good idea to get a nice variety so that you don't get bored, so that you'll stick with it. Okay. All right, the next one, overload. In order to see the metabolic and physiological changes that you want, you need to go beyond what you have done before. Okay, so I have been able to run for 20 minutes at a time at 60% of my VO2 max. If I stay there, that's not an overload. Eventually I need to, let's see if I can go 22 minutes at 60% VO2 max. Or, what else could I change? That was the time. So I go from 20 to 22. What else could I change? Good, I can go to 70% VO2 max, so I can increase my intensity. Okay, so changing those FIT principles is where you can get your overload. You're not going to see development unless you get a progressive overload. Progressive is the key. What are some things that happen if you don't increase progressively? The what? Okay, you could get stagnation. You what? Plateau, good. What else? If I don't make a progressive overload, what if it's a extreme, so I go from 20 to, okay, and I'm gonna see if I can go 40 minutes. Yeah, okay, there's one, injury. What else? Injury's a big one. Other things that could happen if I go too extreme.
Your immune system could go down.
Exactly. We could get into this last thing we're going to talk about, which is overtraining. You could actually physically get sick because you pushed yourself too hard. Okay. You go too hard, what happens is maybe a person doesn't get injured, but going too hard is hard. It's a lot easier to go from 20 to 22 minutes than to go from 20 to 40. If you were to tell me, okay, Dr. B, you need to run 40 minutes a day instead of 20, what might I say? Forget you, I'm leaving. I don't want to do that. I quit. It's too hard. Okay, that's why we do progressive. Okay, so overload, progressive. Individualization simply means what's good for me might not be good for you. What's good for you is probably not good for the next person. Especially those of you who are interested in personal fitness training. If you're going to be running a fitness facility, a lot of times you don't have personal training sessions. Quite frankly, if you want to make some money, you're going to need some group training sessions. So you got to find a way to individualize within those groups. I used to go to Miracles Fitness, and they have these group workout sessions. You can sign up for a program that is individual training or group training. And the group training is like 6 to 8 people in a group. And seriously, it could be anywhere. Miracles tends to have people my age and older there, but also some younger people. And so the workouts could vary a lot. There could be a person 25 years old, somebody my age there, somebody 75 years old. And one of the nice things I found about those trainers there, they did an excellent job of individualizing within the workout. So yeah, we were all doing maybe lunges across the floor, walking across the floor, but for some of us, she would have us holding weights. The other ones were just doing their body weight. And they also did a good job of, if we're doing a circuit and it's time for arm curls, they could do a good job of picking out, well, what kind of weight would push me versus would push somebody else. So, that's something that you got to be ready to do if you want to really help somebody improve, so that you are overloading them and not getting into the overtraining. What's periodization? We know what that is? Yes?
Like breaking the year into seasons, so you have like a preseason and then like the competition season and
Okay, good. It has a lot to do with sport, okay, training for sport. So that those of you in sport, you may have had a preseason, and in preseason you're doing a lot of endurance training. So you might do running, or you might do biking or swimming or something, and it's easy, kind of at maybe 60-70% of your max VO2. Then you get into getting ready for the season, and you start to actually get into your actual workouts for your sport. So you actually get into the boat and you're rowing. You actually go into soccer and you're working on your soccer skills. So you're actually doing things related to the sport. Then you get into your competition time. And then you get into your getting toward the end of the season. The idea is you're trying not to peak too early. Okay, so you have a particular competition that you're gearing for. Last year with the Olympics, you often heard about athletes, especially, I watch track and field, but any of them, swimming, any of them, where they talked about how they were training such that they're hitting their peak right now. They often talked about that, and they wanted to hit their peak at the U.S. Olympic trials. Hit it too early, then you're starting to go down in your training and your fitness level. You don't want to hit it too late, because then you might not make the Olympic team. So it's that fine line, and it takes some real knowledge in order to do that. Okay, and it helps you also to athletes to get, so they don't get bored with the season, so that they stay excited, get some variety with them as well. and it's a good thing. How about reversibility? Anybody ever experienced that? What are we talking about there? Yeah.
It's kind of like retraining when your fitness level starts to go down.
Okay, how soon does that happen?
A few days after you
Yeah, it's just not fair, is it? It's like you work and you work and you work, and then something happens, you get into finals week and you feel like you can't work out, which you should because it keeps your brain going, but you're not working out, and it's like, oh, you're already having some decrease in your fitness levels. Okay? Like I said, it's just not fair. But it happens very quickly. Now, the nice thing is, once you get up to a certain level of fitness, it takes maybe less intensity, less time during a week, for example, to keep yourself at that level. Okay, so let's say you've been doing a workout for 30 minutes, a cardiovascular workout for 30 minutes at 70% of your VO2 max, and you're at a good level, you like where you're at. Well, you know what? You could maintain that level by maybe going, and I don't know exact numbers, so don't quote me, maybe 60% of your VO2 max. So it doesn't take as much once you get fit. That's a good thing. But if you were to stop altogether, unfortunately, you see that detraining effect very quickly, that it reverses very quickly. And then overtraining. Overtraining is when you experience fatigue, illness, poor performance. You are, yes?
I'm trying to about the reversibility. How long does it take to go back to where you were once the reversibility happens?
I would think it would depend on how long you've been off. Okay, so you know, if it's only a week or two, it's not going to take as long as if it's a month or, you know, a year or whatever. A year, you probably just have to start over again.
So like,
So.
say you've been like training for a year and then you take like 2 months off.
Yeah, good question. I don't know. And I don't know if it might be individual, it might be a relationship with how fit you are before. Good question. Yeah. Okay.
I know my coach used to tell me that like it took about a week to lose what it took 3 weeks to build up.
Okay.
Is that, like,
Okay, that's a good idea. That's one I need to look up because that's a good question. See what I can find out. Okay. All right, so you're overtraining. Actually, we'll talk about this when we get into sport and exercise psychology, the exercise psychology part. We talk about overtraining and burnout there. Overtraining is a physical thing. It's fatigue, you have illness, maybe injury, and you're just not performing the way you could or should. Okay? Any of you, especially, I mean, if you're not an athlete, this is hard to experience. You can. You definitely can. I'm not saying you can't. But athletes tend to experience it more because they are really pushing themselves more. Have any of you athletes experienced this? I hope not. Ooh, you have. That's not good. So tell me some of the things you experience. Yeah.
I'm a dancer, and freshman year of high school, I had a back injury.
Okay.
It's like an overuse thing. I kept overstretching it, and I had to go to physical therapy for it. And it was just like improper technique and stretching it too much.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. Kate.
I kind of had the same thing with my knees. Eventually, with just overuse from rowing, I ended up losing some cartilage in my knees and had to go to physical therapy as well.
Okay.
I have patella tracking.
Okay. Good. Other ones? Yeah, that's how you.
Yeah, I know, I deployed, and while I was there, I had to be able to do 100 push-ups in one set and
Yeah.
also be able to bench 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's a lot of chest, a lot of
Yeah.
things I was doing, and I ended up rupturing my pec.
Oh, wow.
Tore
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's overuse is a lot of it is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Exertional compartment syndrome.
You say it again?
Exertional compartment syndrome.
Oh. Tell me about that.
I just had like surgery on the front hip compartment because I had to get myself on my position.
And what sport or activity was that?
Soccer.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I believe it. You said you had it. Yeah.
So I had both my shoulders, kind of the muscles in my shoulders just got over fatigued, and so basically I'm feeling like I couldn't put any force into this movement right here, so
Okay.
I was just not using my arms, like
And what activity was that?
swimming.
Swimming? Okay. Okay. Did you have it too? No? Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
I played football and I tore my labrum doing power press.
Okay. So what did you all do to get past that? Okay? To change that. To not be overtrained and to get back into top conditioning again. What were some things that you had to do?
Physical therapy, rest, and then like not as intense workouts, but still like doing the workouts, so like maintain strength.
Okay. Physical therapy, rest, not as hard of workouts. Anything different?
Well, my thing was, I mean, it's similar, but periodization really doesn't matter because muscles sure do get stronger than tendons. That's why
Okay.
I learned to be a
Okay.
doctor.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, they're like, yeah, your tendons gave way. Muscles might have been ready for it, but the tendons aren't.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
They don't grow as fast.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Some medical, physical things there. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Yes. Yeah. Lots of Bengay. Whatever feels good. And like I said, rest is a big one for this. Having to change workouts, going to physical therapy, doing those physical types of things where you have to rest. That's part of it. Yeah.
And then I had to wear knee braces and like tape my knees
Oh wow.
a lot.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. So, some of our basic principles of training right here. So we're going to see those, some of them as we keep moving along. Now, some different types of training. Two basic kinds are continuous and interval training. Continuous and interval training. Continuous is just what it says. Continuous means you just keep going, there's no rest. Interval training means you have some work times where you have some rest times interspersed with it. Okay, so you have alternating time periods of work and rest. So with continuous training, that's probably for those of us who are basic health-related fitness types of folks, which is probably most of us in here. If you're doing a cardiovascular workout, this is probably more of what you're doing. You're going out for a run, you're going out for a bike, you're going into the pool and doing swimming. You're going to your workouts over at the COREC, your group exercise thing. That's probably more in the continuous, maybe not. I don't know if that is some of your group exercise things. That might be interval as well. I don't know. Some of the advantages of continuous exercise. For general health, it's generally at a 60% of your VO2 max. Athletes tend to, if they're doing a continuous exercise, it tends to be at a higher level. So you have your basketball players who are doing running during preseason. They tend to be at a higher level, maybe 60-70% of their VO2 max than non-athletes. With continuous training, we see you can do it at a constant pace or a varied pace. Now, there's still no rest. You still keep going. Those of you who've done different of these, tell me about your workouts when you did constant versus variable. I've done both of them, I know. Yeah, okay.
With rowing practice, sometimes we go, like, we have a, 30-minute workout either on the water or on land, and we do, 20 minutes at this stroke rate at this intensity, and then you do, 10 minutes at 5 minutes at a sprint, and then you go back to, slower, and then so you vary it.
And you're never stopping, right?
Yeah, like a pyramid workout.
Okay, so maybe 20 minutes to one, and then they're going harder for 5 minutes, and then back down for 10, something like that. Maybe back up. Okay, that's a varied pace. Continuous would be same pace, all 30, 40 minutes. All right? So, anybody else have any kinds of varied workouts that they've done that look like that? Yeah.
For soccer, we have to sprint one side of the field, then jog another side, and then sprint for a half an hour straight.
And you just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay? And that looks a lot like a soccer game, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay? So that's a continuous workout with a varied pace. What else?
I do gymnastics, and one example that was Indian run, so we would all jog around, and we did them where the person in front had to go around the whole field and go back and they would sprint around, so then you just go back and forth.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, those kind of workouts you would have, we used to do it with my kids in PE class. They'd get in a group of 4, so here they are lined up, they'd go jogging around the area or whatever, on signal or maybe on their own signal. The person at the end would sprint up to the front, then they'd run for a little while, then when they're ready or when I gave them the signal, the person at the end would run up to the front. Okay? Maybe ever do fartlek runs? Okay, what's a fartlek run, remember? Yeah, so I know, I just thought they were interesting because we go out for a run. When I was in college, we'd go out for a run and we'd run the, what am I thinking of? Telephone poles. Okay, so maybe we warm up for a mile or two, and then for a couple, 3 miles, we would run telephone poles. So you sprint to the next pole, and then you jog between them. Then you sprint to one, jog the next, sprint to one, jog the next. You do that for a couple miles, and then you go back to your regular pace. Okay? It's kind of fun to do something different like that because it gives you a little bit variety. Also becomes a lot like some of your activities you're doing. Also tends to train, doesn't really say up here, tends to train more of your anaerobic glycolytic system. If you just stick at a steady pace, you're getting mostly your oxidative system. And in a lot of activities, you're not just using that. So it does help to do those kinds of things. Okay? So you see some of the other advantages and disadvantages here. With continuous training, it's time efficient. Okay, I know I'm going to run for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'm done. It does the cardiovascular and muscular endurance. It's easy to follow. Hey, go run for 20 minutes. I can do that. Sport specific, can be, depending what it is. Less chance of injury, because you're just kind of going the whole time. Disadvantage, though, you might need a little bit higher if you're an athlete. Intensity can be monotonous, can be boring as heck. And sometimes it's not specific to your activity. Whereas with a varied continuous activity, varied paced continuous activity, you can train at a higher level. Unfortunately, it does lead to an increase of injury. So when I get to that telephone pole, it's time for me to sprint. When you start off, that's when you could pull a muscle or something. Okay? So that's where you could have an increase of injury. Then we have interval training, where we have some rest with the actual workout. Okay? Those tend to require more time, also have an increase of injury. Let's look at the different types of interval training you can do. So with interval training, you can have a short interval, an intermediate, or a longer interval. The work itself, so the actual sprint or going hard, whatever it is you're doing, for a short, really that's what we're talking about. That's how you distinguish between the amount of time. It can be 5 to 30 seconds. Intermediate is 30 to 2 minutes. 2 minutes to 5 minutes. When I was I was trying to think. I was training for my marathon. I did repeat miles, which were I went at about 6 minutes a mile. And I didn't rest that long though. Yeah, it was fun. So, you know, they can be as long as you need them to be, your intervals, depending on what you're doing. Get your rest interval, how long is that? How big is your intensity? How high is your intensity? Here's where is the key. Which energy system do you want to get at? If you're just working at shorter sprints, shorter time periods of work, then you just need to get at the phosphagen system. So you just need short periods of work, and then of course longer for your rest period. That influences speed and power. If you're getting at the anaerobic glycolytic system, you're getting into the intermediate intervals. And then longer intervals, like what I was talking about, that's still getting with your oxidative system a lot, but it helps with lactic acid removal. So you're training that, those things that we just talked about. Let me see. Okay, let me show you something here. So that's not what I wanted to get. Is that the one? Let's go back to here. All right, so maybe you've heard of Tabata training. Okay, you guys do it? Yeah. Oh, okay, okay. Have you not done it? No. Okay, okay. Nobody else? Got a few of you, okay, okay. Anybody actually do it?
Are you talking about the Tabata protocol, where it's like high-intensity interval training?
Yeah, it's high-intensity interval training. Here's an article on it. I'll send this to you. Tabata training was developed by some Japanese exercise physiologists. They're 4-minute workout periods. And what happens is, like it shows right here, you work hard for 20 seconds and you rest for 10, and you do 8 rounds of that. That's 4 minutes. And the idea here they have where you're doing 4 of these in a row. And it can be any kind of activity. So here we have push-ups for 4 minutes. So you get down and you're doing, when you get the signal, you do push-ups for 20 seconds, hard as you can go. Good form, of course. And then at the end of the 20 seconds, you rest for 10. Then you go again for 20 seconds. Get as many push-ups as you can, and then you rest for 10. There's a minute. You do that for 4 minutes. And here they have you going on now to body weight squats, and then after that, burpees, and then mountain climbers. Are you going to be out of breath with these push-ups at the end of 4 minutes? Probably before 4 minutes. So you end up getting some benefit, especially from the anaerobic glycolytic system, as well as the phosphagen system. But you can get a really, really good workout in a really, really short period of time. And in fact, for probably 4 years, this was the meat of my workout system. I would do Tabata workouts. I'd do about 20, 30 minutes every morning, just varying these things all the time. What am I doing? Sometimes I'm doing up on the bench. Sometimes I'm doing bicycle. Sometimes I'm doing other kinds of weights. I mean, all different kinds of things. And, you know, I was in pretty good shape. And this is what I was going to show you here. One thing I found when I was doing that is this app called the Interval Timer. It's a free app. And I made all kinds of Tabata workouts on here. Like here's my basic Tabata workout just for a 4-minute one. It gives a signal when you're ready to go. There's my signal to go. You see it counting down. I'm doing my step, I'm doing my push-ups, doing my burpees, whatever the heck I'm doing. Doing that for 20 seconds. Go hard, not easy. You got to go hard. And you're done. Now I'm resting. Resting, get a drink, whatever. Get the signal again here in a second. Time to go. Just keeps going. And I had, like right here, here's all the workouts that I came up with. I did all kinds of different ones. Here is what was this one? This was a 45-second. I varied the interval just because I wanted something different. 45 seconds for the hard part, so I couldn't go quite as hard, and then 15 seconds to rest. And what were some of the other ones? Here's one I did just for abs. I don't know how long the rest was here. But with this free app, again, it's called Interval Timer, you can do create all kinds of whatever you want to come up with for whatever you're doing, which works pretty good. Okay, I'll send you that article about the Tabata so that you can all see what that is and maybe start some Tabata training on your own. All right, let's go back to this. All right, so if you want to change your VO2 max, if we're just talking about cardiovascular training, for young adults just wanting basic fitness, you actually want to see an improvement in your VO2 max, a minimum of 15 minutes, 60% of your VO2 max, 3 times a week. And many of you will be working, maybe you want to get into physical therapy, cardiovascular respiratory therapy, whatever. Here's some basic ideas if you're working with elderly, maybe even less fit or diseased folks. Depending on their contraindications, you gotta go at a lower level there. Now, you can see fitness improvements. You can see health improvements, not fitness. You can see health improvements at lower levels. Okay, so for example, my mother is 85 years old. Okay, she walks around the assisted living where she lives every day. She is not getting anywhere close to 30 to 50% of her VO2 max. She is not going to see an improvement in her VO2 max by doing that. But she could see improvements in her blood pressure. She could see improvements in her weight level, in her body composition. Okay? So make sure you're talking to your clients. What do they want to get out of it? You know, do they really want to improve fitness, or are they just interested in the health benefits? Because you can see improvements in health even if you're not seeing improvements in things like that. Those of you who are athletes and elite athletes, you're going to have to work to see improvements in your VO2 at a much higher level. Good reason is because you're already at a higher level, so that's a good thing. And we just talked about this. All right, so methods of strength training. We already talked about the first one way back, I think, the first day of class. the fact that you can improve the different types of contractions we have. We have isometric, concentric, and eccentric, and you know what those are. And then there are different types of strength training. Isometric, meaning that the length of the muscle doesn't change when you're doing the exercise. Okay? It has limited applicability because most people, well, I mean, here, I can pull on my hands just like this. This is an isometric exercise, as long as I'm pulling hard. Limited applicability because I'm only seeing strength improvements right here. That's not what most of us want. Okay, that's why most of us go to isotonic or isokinetic. Isotonic meaning that the weight stays the same, but the speed can change throughout the contraction. And this is your typical weight lifting, like your free weights, most of your exercise machines. So, what I mean by the speed changes is that, let's say I'm doing a bench press. I'm pushing up here, and usually there's a point here where it's kind of slow at first, and then I get past here, and it speeds up. And then when I come down, the eccentric tends to be faster. You can slow it down, and you should slow it down to get good benefit, but you know how it changes in speed on how the weight moves. I mean, same with a curl. You come here, it might be slow, and you get past a certain point, and then, oh, you got it past it. That sticky point. And then it goes down. Now that's different than isokinetic. Isokinetic workouts have certain machines where it keeps the speed the same. Okay, so you pick a certain percentage of your max, and it keeps the speed the same. And they are special machines. Do we have any of these? Anybody know? Do we have any over in the CoRec? The Biodex machines, contracts. Do we have them in the athletes' workout facility? Do we? No? Yeah, okay. I would think the athletes would have them. Yeah. Okay. Most of us are going to be doing isotonic exercises. Okay. Now, the isotonic ones are actually, the benefit of them is that they tend to be more sport specific. I mean, they're really with the isokinetic, there are very few activities you do where you have a constant speed throughout a contraction. It just doesn't happen that way. Most of your activities you do, whatever it is, you tend to have different speeds in a contraction. So that makes it more like isotonic, so that's an advantage of that. Problem is with isotonic, you can have more muscle soreness, possibly injury with that, especially with the eccentric contraction. Okay. Now, things to remember when you are trying to improve strength, endurance, or just get hypertrophy. Specificity, always specificity with the training, as well as your training variables, your frequency, your intensity. In this case, we're talking about the number of reps, repetitions, number of times you do lift a weight or do something in a row. A set is a group of repetitions. So, for example, for strength training, I might do 3 sets of 6 reps. So I'm doing 6, let's do arm curls. We'll do 6 arm curls, and then I rest. That's 1 set. Okay, and I might rest 3 minutes between sets. And then I do another set of 6 reps. And then I rest. Then another set of 6. And then I rest. Okay? And your intensity has to do with what percentage of your but not VO2 max, your 1 repetition max, or your weight at which you can only lift an exercise. You can only do it 10 times. What weight is that? You can't do any more. If you do less, that doesn't count either. Okay, so you can see what you're trying to get at, looking at what kind of reps do I need to work out if I want to get endurance. And again, I would go for strength. If I'm going to do anything, save myself some time, because you'll get some benefits there. Okay. Now, the thing I want to show you here, let me back this up. This is another one of my apps. It's called iMuscle 2. And with the iMuscle 2, it's really cool. You're going to turn them around, you can turn them upside down, all kinds of things with them. But the idea is, so I can look at this and say, okay, I'm tired of my workout. I want to do something else for my biceps. So you click on the bicep. It'll show you some other exercises you can do with the bicep. So here's a bicep curl with the barbell. Down here, here's a bicep drag curl. Here is a bicep alternating curl. Here is a bicep curl with the cable. I don't know if there's any, oh, here's some more. Here's some more. Here's a bicep curl with the dumbbell. Here's a bicep curl. So it shows you how to do the bicep curl on the incline. Tells you how to do it, how to prepare, what's the execution, etc. It shows you what are the primary muscles being exercised as well as the secondary ones. So that's one way you can use that. Another way to look at it is I can here, under the type of exercise, so here's some isotonic exercises. I mean, that's pretty vague, pretty general. But here I can look at, okay, what do I want? I want in my upper arm. And I want to be able to use a bench. Oops, there are none. Really? That's kind of dumb. How about a dumbbell? There we go. Okay, here we got a whole bunch of them. Look, let's try that one. Never done that one before. It's variety. It may be helpful in that way. So it lets you see some different exercises you can get. And then you can even record your workouts, record your progress, and so forth. It's a very, very good app. It might be a good app if you are interested in getting that kind of thing. Unlike the interval trainer, though, it's more expensive. So, okay. So next time we will get into chapter 13. So make sure you have that ready to go by Thursday.